All right, so if I'm going to start up a new podcast, I can't do it solo, okay? My first podcast has to be with my good friend, my former co-host on Locked On Steelers. You know him from DK Pittsburgh Sports. He's been on WPXI. He's everywhere. He's the host of Locked On Steelers currently. Chris Carter, welcome to Steeler Country.
What up, bro? It's great to be. What's up, Tony? I'm excited. Let's go. We're doing the show together. We do Tony Tuesdays. Like I'm hyped. I'm hyped.
We got Tony Tuesdays, but here on a Monday, we're here on Steeler Country to do. They're going to get their double dose of Tony and Chris together this week. Chris, we got a lot to talk about. This is going to be a crazy Steeler offseason. It's already started that way with the whole Ben rumors. Is he done? Is he not done? Last season, of course, we dealt with this, right? We dealt with the talk from outside of Pittsburgh. Is Ben Roethlisberger done? Can he come back from that elbow surgery? And that was how Steeler fans spent their entire offseason answering those questions. This year, though, it feels like those questions might be coming from within, right? I mean, it seems like there's half the Steeler fan base who feels like, is Ben Roethlisberger done? I mean, he did throw many interceptions at the end of last season. Didn't look good for like the last 6 weeks of the season. So in your mind, Ben Roethlisberger coming back to this team now, it seems like he wants to come back. He's going to work out some contract stuff with the Steelers in the coming days. But is that a good thing for the 2021 Steelers to have a Ben Roethlisberger back, given the way that he played at the tail end of the 2020 season?
It's only good if they do a couple things. One, they need to shore up the offensive line, and two, they need to get a better running back. If they can do those two things and balance the offense and get a real running game, then it's a good thing. But if they come back with an offensive line that's still aging and there's no new investments, and if they come back with with Benny Snell as a starting running back, with Anthony McFarland and Jalen Samuels as the backups, they're in a lot of trouble. And that's where I see it, is that Ben can come back if the team is going to be balanced. But if the team is going to require him to do what he did at the end of the season last year, that's where their problems go. Because that's where I see them falling off. Their first 6 or 7 games, they were doing very well on the ground. They were averaging over 130 yards per game on rushing, and they were balancing the offense, making it tough to predict where they were going to go. When they started to have that stretch of games where you're like, I don't know if this is sustainable, it was when they started to throw the ball a whole bunch because they weren't used to the way that they were running the ball. So that's my thing. It's good for the Steelers if they can find a way to balance that offense. It's bad for the Steelers if they don't.
Yeah, because Ben Roethlisberger right now, the way he was playing, like you said, for me, the thing about Ben at the end there, the decision making just went off a cliff, right? I mean, he just all of a sudden he was throwing the ball right to defenders, and of course you're gonna have that when you're exposing yourself to Ben throwing the ball 30, 40. I mean, it was 50 times a game at some points at the end of last season. I mean, there is a worry that I have. If I'm Ben Roethlisberger right now and I'm thinking about coming back in 2021, I know he wants to bring all his boys back and all that, but Father Time is undefeated, and we saw this with Drew Brees, right? I mean, Drew Brees had an awful way out, and look, going out the way that Ben would go out if he did retire right now against Cleveland, I mean, it was a bad way to exit. But I look at next season. I mean, there were games, Chris, in 2020 where Ben threw like 20 yards in the first half. I think he had the game against Cincinnati where he had negative passing yards in the first half. I mean, is there a chance that 2021 just goes completely off the rails for Ben? And like, could we see Ben Roethlisberger benched in 2021?
I mean, it would have to get really bad. Now, again, in those games, I didn't think Ben's problem was his physical ability. It was his mental processing.
Right.
He didn't see the field. And that was what was most frustrating, was like, how do you go from you were playing so well, you were doing a great job, you were extremely efficient, to being such a problem child for an offense that's designed for you. And that was the most frustrating thing. Again, if they can balance the offense and get it to the point where, like, look, Ben, we only need you to make, 5 or 10 tough calls a game when it comes to, hitting tight passing windows, or, making brilliant decisions that slice open a defense. We're only asking you to pass it 25 to 30 times a game. And, there's going to be about the majority of those are going to be easy passes because we're setting you up with the run game.
It's like a circle of life. He goes back to his rookie season, right? He goes back to exactly how he started.
And to me, that's the ticket for winning. And that's the thing, Tony. People, I've heard the conversation for years. Jason Whitlock said this, 7 years ago when he was like, "Is Mike Tomlin wasting Ben's best years?" The Steelers have given Ben Roethlisberger everything imaginable. The best receiver in football, the best running back in football, a top 5 offensive line, several very good secondary options at both running back and wide receiver. And year after year, the Steelers offense was never number one. And that's the thing, is that Ben Roethlisberger he's not the super elite quarterback. He's a great quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a gritty quarterback, but the ticket to winning with him, to me, and I think the Steelers are going to start to realize it this year, is you need a great defense and you need a ground game, and then you kind of just need him to come up in the big moments. But trying to give him the weapons to be a supreme offense the way he wanted, that's just not the way.
You're absolutely right about the idea, that they've surrounded Ben with his guys, right? I mean, the guys that he wanted around there, right? Ryan Switzer stuck around for maybe a little longer than it felt like he should have. Randy Fichtner as offensive coordinator was clearly a hire that Ben wanted, right? The Haley years with Ben, it really deteriorated there at the end. What do you make of the hiring of Matt Canada, the quarterback coach from last season, as offensive coordinator? His style coming in, as I look at it, the amount of play action that he's going to want to run, the misdirection. And then I think about what Ben is right now, what Ben wants to be, and what he's really capable of as far as his mobility. Do these two mesh?
I think they could mesh if Ben is willing to submit to what this offense is going to be. It's not even going to be about him being mobile. You got to understand, this is a coordinator who, when he was at Pitt, he had Nathan Peterman as his quarterback. Nathan Peterman's not no super mobile guy, but the Pitt was able to use their speedy guys to build off of him. And Ben can be smart enough to be like, hey, we're just going to let this motion play out. And to me, that's when the running game was working, when Pitt was, when the Steelers were using more and more of the motion that Canada had kind of worked into the wrinkles of the offense. But as the season goes on, the things that you're unfamiliar with start to be whittled out. And they didn't have a real training camp to even get those things into the offense.
Right.
That's where I think the problem was. And so now with Matt Canada being the offensive coordinator, they're going to be able that now he's going to be like, look, this is the offense. This isn't a wrinkle. This is the real deal. Right. So I think it could work in that way. But this is going to be up to Ben Roethlisberger. How humble does he come into this season? He said, I'm willing to take whatever pay cut the Roonies are offering. Is he real about that? Does he come into this and say, this is not, this is Matt Canada's offense? This isn't my offense. This is not Randy Fichtner's offense. This is something I need to adjust to.
Yeah. Well, so, whether or not the Steelers get Ben Roethlisberger back this year and he plays in 2021, they are going to have to start focusing on getting the future at quarterback, right? They need someone behind Ben. Now, Art Rooney can talk about how he thinks Mason Rudolph can be a starter in this league, and that's nice. He maybe could be a spot starter, but I don't know that he's certainly he's not the future of the quarterback here. What did you make of the signing of Dwayne Haskins from Washington in the offseason? A lot of Steeler fans felt like this is high upside, low downside type thing. They got him on basically a futures contract, a minimum contract. What do you make of that signing? I mean, is that a play for the future, or is that just a shot in the dark?
Yeah, it's just a flyer. It's just the Steelers being like, hey, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, who cares? We didn't lose anything. I see that. I think that could be the decision at quarterback this year in the draft too. If they get to the 4th or 5th round and Kellen Mond's sitting there, they're like, you know what, bring him in here. Maybe he's great. Maybe he's Dak Prescott for us. And if he's Dak Prescott, then that you love that, because then you found your future quarterback, or you found the guy that you can say, hey, let's put him out here for a trade and get a big haul for him, because someone's going to want a big piece for that. So, I think that's absolutely the move. I think Steelers fans need to realize next year could be the year when the Steelers make a move at quarterback, because you're going to have, presumably, I'm presuming that they do not bring back Bud Dupree. They do not bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. They do not bring back James Conner. They could have 2 third-round comp picks and maybe even a little bit more with all the different players that they're supposed to lose in this free agency period.
Yeah.
If that happens, Tony, you're talking about, one, the Steelers would have the most cap space according to all the research that's out there, and the cap space is going to be even bigger next year because they'll have 17 games in the regular season.
Yep.
And then 2, they'll have a huge haul of draft picks, and that's where you can say, look, we can either trade and get a veteran quarterback that right now is like Sean Watson, whoever's mad at their team next year, or they can use the trade and say, like, all right, we're making the move. Let's get up into the top 10 and get the quarterback we really want.
Yeah. So in your mind though, does Dwayne Haskins does that preclude them from making any other quarterback moves this offseason, you think? I mean, could they bring in like let's say Jameis Winston, wanted to come to Pittsburgh and he could sit behind Ben for a little while and maybe be the future or something like that. Does that preclude that, the fact that Haskins is on the roster now with Rudolph and Ben?
No, it doesn't preclude that at all. I think that Haskins is purely another camp arm. He is just a guy who's going to need to prove himself when he gets to the Steelers. But they will take. I think they would happily welcome if Jameis Winston could come on the contract that he came on for the Saints. Steelers jump on that, and I think they would.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, we got to talk about these rumors though. Ed Bouchette said on the radio the other day the Steelers are looking at quarterbacks in the draft, and there's one that they really like. Is it Trey Lance? Is it Justin Fields? Nope. Is it Mac Jones? Nope. It's Kyle Trask, the quarterback from Florida. Now, of course, I don't know where you are in your draft evaluation right now. I haven't really watched Trask at all, but I am here. I am in Florida, so I've seen enough Gator games to know Kyle Trask ain't it. What?
No. Get him out of here.
Listen, you talked about the Steelers taking a quarterback in the 4th or 5th round. Trask in the 4th or 5th is fine, but Trask seems like he's going to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And boy, if he were to get picked at 24, I mean,
it just there are several Steelers fans who I've seen on Twitter, and I understood them. They were like, if this happened, just put a paper bag over our heads. You just forget about it. I remember you were there, but it'd be like that for the next 4 or 5 years if they did that. And again, invest in the offensive line, invest at the running back, invest at other positions that need your help. Kyle Trask is not a 1st-round quarterback. He's a guy you take out. He's like Kellen Mond. You take a flyer on him. Him and Mac Jones, they benefited from being on great programs that have a lot of talent around them. But they're not consistent enough. I wouldn't touch him with a 39.5-foot pole in the early rounds.
All right, so let's talk about running back then, because the Steelers do need to improve at the running back position. First of all, let's just talk about this. Is there any chance in your mind that they do the easy thing here and they just bring Connor back for another season?
No, I don't. I mean, maybe if they get him on a super cheap contract, and they say, you could come back, but he's not the starter next year. They're going to invest. Well, when Mr. Rooney says we need to make changes happen in the run game. I talked to our guy Dean Pietro.
Okay,
he was like, he said this 4 years ago. I was like, well, yeah, but 4 years ago he thought that Le'Veon Bell was going to stick around,
right?
And that didn't happen, and so that changed up the dynamics of how this offense worked. But this year, they know who's around this year. There's no superstar running back that they're hoping comes back to the offense. Now they need to invest, and I think this is the year where they're like, okay, we either get someone in free agency or we draft somebody.
Yeah, and so there was rumors this week that they were going to be that the Steelers are going to be interested in Aaron Jones. Although given the Steelers cap situation, I mean Ben would have to take you'd have to take a hell of a pay cut to make that work. Aaron Jones, I think, would be like the right type of addition, though, right? Someone who can be a good runner, but he can be good in the passing game, pass protection, all of that. I mean, the Steelers, when I look at the running back position, Chris, I'm thinking maybe the Steelers maybe lean on a veteran here more than a rookie, just because they need someone. There's Benny Snell's not good in pass protection. Anthony McFarland hasn't shown it yet. So if you're going to bring someone in who's going to be kind of a 3-down guy, I don't know. I mean, I know Najee Harris can be that guy, but other than that, in the draft, is there another player that they could trust right away?
I mean, I think Travis Etienne could be that guy. He was very good for Clemson in a lot of different roles.
Yeah.
I think Javonte Williams is big enough to be that guy. I don't know if Michael Carter is. He's a smaller back.
Yeah.
I'd say Najee Harris. And the thing with Aaron Jones is that if you're paying him to do this, you are taking up cap space to do this. If you draft the guy, that's 4 or 5 years of a young running back where you're not paying him a ton of money. You're
right.
just
and you're getting him in prime years of the running back.
Exactly. That's why I don't think they go for Aaron Jones. I think that they're like, look, Benny Snell, you better just get better at pass protection.
Yeah.
And then the rest of you guys figure it out or you're going to be gone. And then if they make a move, they bring back Connor for super duper cheap. He's your number 2 guy. And they draft a dude to be the number 1 guy. But to me, the answer cannot be just more of the same at running back.
No, I mean, I guess there's – how do you think McFarland plays in next year? Because McFarland did play with Canada for that 1 year at Maryland, right? And, he was brought in last year. Didn't really get a hat at the end of last season. How does he figure it? Does he figure it at all?
I think they try to work him in on third downs and on passing downs. And Canada does like to get different with his offense. He'll run more jet sweeps. He'll spread you out. He'll figure out ways to try and isolate players. And that's what he does with his motion, is that he tries to get, let's say, okay, the trick here of this play is to isolate the defensive end and put him in a tough position to make a decision. And Anthony McFarland's speed and quickness and space is the part of that. But he has to be good at making people miss. He wasn't good at that last year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, his seems like his vision just wasn't there for portions of the year. All right, let's talk about the salary cap, because the Steelers are going to be in a bit of a cap crunch this year. I mean, that's why they're going to be losing so many players in free agency.
Yep.
We did get some good news in the past couple of days that the salary cap may be higher than that 175 floor that they had talked about. In fact, it seems like it may be in the range of 185, maybe even 190. So that's another $10-15 million just automatically for, and this is before Ben even takes his pay cut, right? Because that's obviously going to open up some things. All right, so to me, there are like 3 priority free agents for the Steelers that they have coming up, right? Bud, Juju, and Mike Hilton. Mm-hmm. Of those 3, if you got the extra 10 or 15, which one are you signing?
I mean, the dream would be Bud, but it's just not realistic.
Well, he is coming off of an ACL. I mean, I guess you can make a case that he might take like a 1-year prove-it deal just because of the ACL, right?
There's maybe John Clayton said that he's going to make $6 million this year in free agency.
6?
Yeah.
I'll take 2.
Right. I would sign him in a heartbeat. But so John Clayton said that on 93.7 The Fan here in Pittsburgh. Bud Dupree literally saw that post, the person who tweeted it, and just put a bunch of laughing emojis.
Okay.
So like he's like, yeah, I don't think so. If he did take $6 million, oh yes, the Steelers would be like, ding ding ding, let's go.
Yeah.
We got
you could bring him back. Yeah, you could bring Bud and Hilton back or something, right?
Right. I think the first free agents you'll see signed by the Steelers to bring back are Zach Banner and Cameron Sutton. I think that Banner's made it all but clear that he's going to be back this year. He was a cheap option for them last year. He only played half of a game. So no team's coming in and giving him a Chris Hubbard contract. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's his decision. Cameron Sutton is too vital for this defense because he plays outside corner and slot and helps in zones and stuff. I think it would be great to bring Mike Hilton back, but the problem with Mike Hilton is that he's only useful in the slot. He's not useful outside, at the number 1 or number 2 cornerback spot. So they'll prioritize those 2 guys, and then they'll see what happens after that. If the salary cap is moved up considerably by $10 or $15 million, and they get Pouncey to retire, and they make take a huge chunk out of Ben's contract, then you're sitting there and saying, maybe we make another move. Maybe we get Hilton. Maybe we add some depth on the offensive line. Maybe we do this. Because Tyson Olulu, I think, needs to come back next year.
Yeah, it's true. They're going to need something at nose tackle.
Right. They need something at nose tackle and something that's going to be on someone that's going to be reliable on that second pairing of interior defensive linemen when Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward are taking a break. So there needs to be those type of moves. But the big names, Juju Smith-Schuster, Bud Dupree, those are the guys I see not coming back because they're just, again, you look at the number that they could make. Juju could make $15 million a year. Bud Dupree in the same range. They're getting that kind of respect. Villanueva, I don't think they want him back. Maybe Matt Filer because of his versatility to play guard and tackle.
Yeah, and a depth piece there on the offensive line. Yeah,
right. But James Conner, I don't see the value unless he agrees to a super duper cheap contract. Maybe they keep a Spillane, but most of these guys are gone next year.
And then that leaves enough room for every Steeler fan's dream to come true. They finally get J.J. Watt and Derek Watt and T.J. Watt all together on the same team. All right, let's talk. Well, Ben wants to bring his guys back though. So you're talking about no Juju, no Pouncey. You sure about that? I mean, Ben really wants those guys back.
He does, but this is where I would be like, you said you were willing to work with us.
Yeah, compromise.
This is what we're talking about.
It's like the Steelers and Ben are in counseling.
Right, exactly. It's like, no, Ben, what are you willing to give up?
I'll give my cap space back for you guys to get Juju.
It's like, okay, but you know what? No, if you want to stick around, that's what you need to do is get cap space. If you want to get Juju, you got to you got to eliminate all your dead money and everything. That just ain't happening.
It's just impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. So and the thing is like, look, Ben, we're going this way with you or without you. We love to have you, so come with us. But if you can't come with us, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so let's say Pouncey doesn't retire, though, right? He comes back. The Steelers aren't going to cut him, right? If he decides he's not going to retire, I would be very surprised if they have that. I guess they did this to Polamalu in the past, so it wouldn't be un-Steeler-like. But could the Steelers, like we talk about upgrading the offensive line, and I do think the Steelers are going to take, offensive tackle in the draft. I think they could take a guard as well, just for a depth perspective, a center certainly. But is it possible the Steelers' offensive line, the starting offensive line week 1 is already like on the roster today? It would just be Zach Banner at left tackle, Dotson at left guard, and then you just go Pouncey, DeCastro, Okorafor, and that's your starting day 1 offensive line.
It's possible if the first pick isn't an offensive lineman. If the first round pick is an offensive lineman, I think that person is plugged in. But if it's a running back and then an offensive lineman in round 2, I can see that person being worked into the offense.
Gotcha.
Especially because the thing is that there's no supreme center in this draft. Creed Humphrey is a guy I think goes in the second round. Landon Dickerson second or third.
Yeah.
And there's some guys that you could wait till later. Quinn Myers, you could pick up in the 4th or 5th round, maybe. Jimmy Morrissey from Pitt, I think, would be an option. But center and tackle are the 2 places you're drafting. If you draft a guard, you're not doing anything with that this year. DeCastro and Dotson are your guys.
Right.
And for offensive tackle, you're drafting somebody that's going to need to beat out either Banner or Okorafor. So and center is the tricky position because if you get rid of Pouncey, you need a center right now.
Yeah, that is a absolutely must have. And I saw Lance Zerline actually had Dickerson, the center from Alabama, mocked in the 1st round, which I thought was very high.
Yeah,
very high. Just position, just for the position itself. You don't see a lot of centers in the 1st round, at least not recently. So yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm there with you. 2nd, maybe 3rd round to take a center if you're gonna. I mean, you probably need to take one anyway, right? Because if Pouncey's coming back, it's 1 year. He's coming back for 1 year. So you got to get somebody in there for the future.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's the thing. You're building the offensive line for the future, not just right now. If Pouncey comes back, it's very temporary. It's just the guy who's playing right now. If you're building an offensive line for the future, he's just around for this year. And Ben Pouncey, he's made it clear he's here as long as Ben is. And that's ultimately what you're looking at Ben most likely for. So the thing is with the offense, especially the offensive line, you want to start building for the future now. Now, granted, you started that with Kevin Dotson. You maybe have that with a core 4 Banner, but and I think DeCastro will be a lot better this year. He came into this year hurt. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Training camp was a nightmare for him. He was not playing. I mean, remember in the first month he barely played.
He did. Yeah, he's right. Yeah. I don't think he didn't practice at camp for the first 3 weeks or something like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So for me, there's a lot of things that the offensive line could get in serious improvements next year. Banner could be a really good offensive tackle, or at least a decent offensive tackle. DeCastro can get back to his all-pro ways. Kevin Dotson's going to be a supreme guard. The question is going to be, can Okorafor step up and improve, and can they get a center who will play very well? I don't think that Pouncey is that guy anymore. He's his role would be, if he comes back, it's like, look, you're taking a huge pay cut, and you're just kind of calling the things out. We're not relying on you to be a dominant center.
Yeah, and they have a new offensive line coach now, Adrian Clem, and he's, I know a lot of Steelers fans were doubting him when he first got announced, but he's saying all the right things, right? He had the interview the other day where he was talking about what we need to do is be more physical.
Right.
Yes, please. I think
please.
that is going to ring true in all of Pittsburgh for sure. Although I don't know, is physicality, is that a mental thing, or are you just are or you aren't, right? Is it a mental thing?
It's a practice thing. I think the Steelers offensive line, based off of how they were operating as an offense, their focus in practice was pass protection, was just being passive, make sure Ben don't get touched, because that was what killed them in 2019. Now it's going to be like, look, forget about Ben. I mean, don't forget about Ben, but the emphasis ain't just protecting him. He's going to have to be a big boy, because we running the ball and we run in play action. Yeah. And there's going to be risk to him. He needs to understand that and still protect himself. And I think that's where Clem's going to bring his A game. And I thought it was very interesting how Zach Banner set up. We wanted Clem and stepped up, but then also former offensive linemen Trey Essex and Ramon Foster were both like, no, this is the guy you want. Essex brought up a great point. The assistant offensive line coach is the guy who works with the rookies and the backups. And he was like, guess who had his hands all over Kevin Dotson last year?
Right.
But Adrian Clem.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because I thought, man, maybe Sarrett's getting a bad rap here because he did do a great job with Dotson, but like you said, if it was more Clem working with Dotson, well, then this makes a ton of sense that they're like, hey, we're going to need to rebuild this offensive line. You've done a great job with the 4th round pick. So, all right, let's talk about the defense going into next season, because we talk about the offense. We got to fix running. The Steelers got to fix running back. They got to fix the offensive line. The Steelers have taken defensive players in the 1st round forever. It feels like. Doesn't feel like that's going to be happening this year, though, right? I mean, if they're going to take the player they take in the 1st round, it's got to be an offensive player, right?
It would take someone falling considerably to make that happen. Now, granted, that could happen. I could see 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10, which would change up that that component considerably.
Is one of them Kyle Trask, so that we don't have that happen?
I mean, I wish it could be. I don't think it would. I don't think he would. But I mean, you're looking at, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. Those guys gone in the top 10. Yep. Maybe someone reaches for a Mac Jones. Maybe someone gets desperate, because that does happen in the NFL. The Steelers just need to not be that team. And you got guys like Micah Parsons, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and Zaven Collins, who people are reaching for in the 1st round. If one of those I'm not sure about Zaven Collins, but if Micah Parsons or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, if one of those guys falls to 24, which would be insane, that would be the time like, okay, we're throwing caution to the wind. Pick a linebacker, because
another linebacker, really?
I mean, but you put that guy next to Devin Bush, you're set. For the next 5 years, you don't have to worry about the linebacker position at all. And even if one went down, the other would be the primary linebacker that could go sideline to sideline, cover, and hit people in the hole. So, but again, I don't think any of those guys drop. The realistic expectation here is you wait at 24. I think that both Etienne and Harris are going to be there for you. And the question will be what offensive tackles are going to be available to you, because I don't see any centers really worthy of a 1st round pick. Is it Liam Eichenberg? Alex Leatherwood was my guy, but he did not look good in the Senior Bowl. He kind of confirmed a lot of people's criticisms that he's more of a guard than an offensive tackle. So maybe you're waiting for a Jalen Mayfield. Maybe you're hoping that Rashawn Slater falls to you. Liam Eichenberg would be the next guy. I'm not sure if I'd take Samuel Cosmi in the 1st round. So if I'm in that position, then I'm like, running back. But to me, it has to be offense. Now, granted, last year's 1st pick technically it was their 1st pick. It was just the 2nd round was Chase Claypool. So. It wasn't a 1st round pick, but they showed some emphasis there to rebuild the offense. But you're right. All the 1st round picks have been on defense, because they've been trying to rebuild a great defense for the Steelers. And I think part of that has been acknowledging, what our attempt to pay a lot of money on offense hasn't worked. It hasn't developed, a number 1 offense, because they do not have the quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, like Tom Brady, like Aaron Rodgers to run it. Ben's a great quarterback, but he's not a super elite quarterback. And to win with him, you're going to need a great defense and a balanced offensive attack.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think it's I'm not trying to hate on Ben here, but I think he's a top 15 quarterback at this point. Mm-hmm. With how he's playing, I think he is physically limited in some ways, but then the decision making, like we talked about, is a big problem for him. What about cornerback? Could cornerback sneak in at the you got Hayden may retire, or not retire, but this may be his last year as a Steeler, and then with Sutton potentially going or staying, and then Hilton leaving. I don't know that they love Justin Lane, certainly. So you may have a situation where you can bring in another outside corner in the rotation and long term to replace Hayden.
I mean, it would take someone falling.
Yeah.
I made a promise to someone in the group, because someone mock drafted Patrick Surtain at 24 to the Steelers.
Oh, I'm for that.
Like, if Patrick Surtain fell to, I would do 5 shots of tequila on air on Locked On Steelers.
Let's do it.
Right. It's worth it. Yeah. I mean, yep. I'll just, I won't recover. The show probably won't get finished, but it will happen.
Yeah. Might come out on a Tuesday, but whatever.
Right. Yeah. Because that'll be the first night. So
that's right. That'll be the Thursday night. That's right.
So, but it still might come out on Thursday, because I will be just in a drunken void until then. but that's what it has to be. Now, I'm J.C. Horn is exciting. I think that he'd be good, but again, at the 24th pick in the first round, you need a guy who's going to help you now-ish. And
right,
if J.C. Horn picked, most likely he's your third option at quarterback, maybe fourth option if they bring back Sutton.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind them picking a cornerback I even say the second round is rough. Third or fourth round, I think that they got some. They can get Ifeatu Melifonwu. I think Sean Wade could fit what they're looking for and test the waters there.
Yeah.
And getting
Sean Wade could actually play safety a little bit too, I think. So
yeah, exactly. And then you have some depth there. Asante Samuel Jr. I think could be an option in the middle rounds. But your first two picks, I think you want to be offense. But if the dream comes true and Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley falls to you, absolutely be like, you know what? You don't get too many options to pick the best cornerbacks in the draft. Let's do that this year.
Right. Because it's not the Artie Burns situation where they're like, oh God, we need a corner and William Jackson's already off the board, so let's just take a guy. This would be a situation where it's like, wait, this is the David DeCastro all over again, right? I don't think the Steelers intended on taking DeCastro because he shouldn't have been there when they picked, but he just happened to be there, and so hey, we'll have when in Rome. All right. Chris, thank you for joining me here on Steeler Country. Happy to have you. We're going to have you back for sure. But thank you for coming on and let people know where they can find your work.
Absolutely. Tony, thanks so much for having me on Steeler Country. This is a lot of fun. I miss doing this with you all the time. You can find me, guys, on Twitter at Carter Critiques. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. It's also my handle on Instagram. If you want to listen to me daily, I do the Locked On Steelers podcast. If you want to read my work, I cover the University of Pittsburgh's football and basketball teams, and I cover the Steelers for DKPittsburghSports.com. You can read my work there. I also do podcasts for them. I host our H2P podcast on Pitt. I also do Steelers draft and weekly draft and weekly Steelers shows for them on the DK Sports Radio Network. So I'm all over the place. And you can also find me at WPXI Channel 11 in Pittsburgh. I occasionally appear on ESPN Pittsburgh, 93.7 The Fan, Steeler Nation Radio. Like Tony said, I'm all over the place. So check me out.
Turn your computer on. Turn your TV on. He's there. You can't miss him.
I'm making a list and I'm checking it twice. But absolutely, if you ever want to just check out my content, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Yeah, make sure you guys are subscribed to Locked On Steelers daily podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Chris is the host, and I'm on there on Tuesdays, so make sure you guys are subscribed to that. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll be back later this week with more Steeler Country.